G'day. I'm going to be showing you how to choose your Popular Freedom Rugby Union company in this business simulation. In this business simulation, you will be looking at a page like this where there's a number of things you can click on. You can click on previous seasons, you can click on players, however, do realize most players' information is now outdated. You can click on previous games and see how the teams did in terms of scoring as well as statistics. You can actually click on team links, among other things, and the teams themselves. You want to choose a company with the best assets based on your skill level. Now, again, some of you may not be familiar with rugby, and you're given a page like this where do I start? It's very confusing. And again, you have player names, you have their ages, you have their skill level, you have their their skilled position and their overall skill level. And again, you might be sitting there going, how do I choose a good team? Well, there's a number of factors that go into that. One of the first ones you may notice is there's a number next to the team name. Okay, and so this team is level 80.6, which means they're not as good as this team, which is 85.6. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean next season that'll be the same thing. This team might have a number of high-skilled players who are also very old and may choose to retire. And so this 85.6 might go down to, as let's say, 75.6 next season, while this team has a bunch of young players, and it might go up in value. And so there's a number of aspects you need to consider before choosing your company. One being recognizing that realistically others are going to be choosing it at the same time, and so making or coming to a decision as quickly as possible and getting as much relatively useful information as possible is important. Please recognize any team in orange has already been chosen and is run by a company or an individual or a set of individuals, a group of individuals already. Let's go over some information that might help. This shows you previous championships, which may be of importance to you. Is this really a good indicator of how a team is? Yes and no. It means teams are good during the season. It doesn't necessarily mean they were the best in the season, because it could mean they did really well in the playoffs because other teams had injuries. This is just some background information in relation to different cities in the country of Popular Freedom where this league takes place, and it's really just fictional. These are really good players from previous seasons. This is the history of the league, which kind of explains through some fictional as well as some non-fictional events how the league got to the place it is now. This is the net worth of teams. Again, this is a really good indicator of how a team is in comparison to others. However, do realize some of this information can be misleading, where let's say we have a team with a really high net worth, but let's say over half of those players are at age 34 or older. And therefore they could all retire next season, and so this net worth could be cut in half. Arguably, although that rarely happens, but still it is possible. So again, but it is a good indicator to sort of get a gauge of where should I start. Past Grand Championships, this just shows how teams have done in the final match, sort of your Grey Cup or Super Bowl or Stanley Cup equivalent, okay, depending on what sports you like. Rankings. What I do prior to a season is during the off season, I run all the teams in a simulation in the exact same way I would in a real season, just so you get a gauge of how teams are stacked. Now, this does not necessarily mean that the top team is going to win. As you can see from last season, Camelot was first in each of the 3 seasons. However, because this was done during the off season, changes were made to other teams, which may have had an impact on how those teams did, which might be a reason why Camelot actually didn't win. They came second in the final championship, Grand Championship as it's called. Okay, but still, that's a good indicator of how a team is. These are the rules. I strongly recommend you to read this. If you have any questions about this, let me know. One of the key pieces is the value, understanding the value of a player, which is based on skill level as well as age. And again, if you have any questions on that, let me know. This also gives you answers a frequently asked question, which is how many players should I have at each position? And again, this is very useful to have because when you're looking at teams, let's say they don't have any flankers or 8-men, that might be an indicator where this team wasn't well run in a previous year by previous owners, and so you might want to stay away from them. Okay. And then finally, training. This tells you how to train players. It's very important for improving the net worth value of your team, which will help in terms of your ability to do well, not to mention improve the asset value of your players, and so that they'll be worth more. You'll be able to gain more revenue as a result of them, so your ROI, return on investment, will be higher. Plus also it'll improve their value so that they might be more attractive in terms of being able to sell those players to other teams and make a profit. So how do you choose a team? Well, again, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go here, as well as you'll probably want to open additional windows or have some other, whether I usually use Excel to sort of check out a team. And then from there, what you'll want to do is sort of go through each of the lists. And as I noted, any team that's currently in the ERL, you want to sort of stay away. And so let's say I was looking at this team, and then I might open a second window, and I might look and go, okay, I'm going to compare this team to this team. And so what you want to do is you want to sort of note, okay, how many props do they have? Now you'll notice this owner, this is actually run by somebody. They've actually put a flanker in a prop position because they're short of props. Okay, not to mention the fact where their replacement is a level 61, which really is not that high. Okay, in this league, a superstar is considered 90 and above. A star is considered 80 to 89. 70 players are pretty decent, but if you have any 60s or 50s in your lineup or in your bench, that is a cause for concern. Okay, and so when I'm looking at this and I'm looking at this, I need to keep that in consideration. Okay, now some of the things you really should be taking note of is right off the bat, what's the net worth? Well, this team's net worth is 12. This team's net worth is 22. Okay, the next thing I need to look at is how old is this team? Are there any players that could retire? Because this seems to be the better team right off the bat. This one has a little bit more money, but also their starter level, meaning the average of all their starters, is 76.6, while this one is 86.73. So in addition to net worth, starters are higher. And so I'm going to look at that, but I want to make sure I'm not getting a team with a whole bunch of 34 or older. Okay, or maybe even 33, 32, because that means they could. And as I'm looking through here, this is a great team. I have one player who might retire, as opposed to this team where I have this guy who could retire at the end of the season and therefore is worth nothing at the end of the season, even though right now they have a value. This person might retire in 2 seasons. This person might retire this season. And so this team seems to have more negatives. And so if I was to choose between the two just based on that information, that would be a good indicator. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. There's another video on how to choose a team as well, and that goes into a little more detail. However, there have been changes made to some of the rules, so some of the information they're going to tell you about ways of making money or other things may not exist anymore. Anyhow, that's a short video on how to choose your team. If you have any questions, do let me know, and thanks for watching. Later.